Thank you very much, good afternoon, and thank you for the meeting. First of all, I apologize for the slight delay. I was involved in a very important briefing. Today we had a serious military briefing because there are many different challenges. Whatever the situation may be, no matter the relations we have with our partners, the topics of air defense systems, drones, radio-electronic warfare systems, missiles, fighting them, and producing our own are all very serious matters. I had a meeting today, fully aware of what we are doing. Today I had a clear understanding, analyzing deep strikes, drones, production, and the analogues of those air defense systems that we are lacking, those that are in short supply. Also, I have an understanding of the countries and partners we are in contact with, what we expect from them, and which ones we will work more closely with from all over the world. I am grateful for the military and intelligence analysis. We now have a broad map of what needs to be done and what we have. And I am satisfied with today's briefing, satisfied with the results. We've made progress today. I thank them. That's the first point. Regarding our meeting, do you have any questions? Colleagues, please, any questions?
Well, as I understand it, France Press. Unquestionably, at the microphone.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. Mr. President, could you officially confirm that the country has agreed on the terms of the agreement regarding U.S. resources? And could you explain what it entails, specifically the sums involved, and why there are no direct security guarantees from the U.S.? Also, could you clarify if you are planning to go to Washington on Friday to sign it?
You have all the questions in one at once.
I have one more question, if I may. If possible, could you also provide an update on the negotiations regarding foreign contingents in Ukraine? What figures are being discussed, and which countries have already confirmed?
I've already forgotten the beginning.
Repeat? Could Ukraine agree to the participation of non-European countries in such a contingent? Specifically, as far as I remember, Russia mentioned China, Brazil, something like that. Thank you very much.
Russia mentioned something. These are our security guarantees, and they definitely do not depend on Russia. Let's try to start from the beginning. Regarding the agreement, our government officials are evaluating the final version very positively. They recommend that it can work. I haven't seen the final version in full yet. I will work on it. I was just involved in the briefing. I will work with this. The main points I raised are sounding very good, and indeed, the teams have worked on it. Both Ukrainians and Americans have worked on this. The most important thing for me was that we are not debtors. And despite what is being said in the media, the agreement does not mention a $500 billion debt, $350 billion, or $100 billion because that would be unjust, in my opinion, toward us. As I said earlier, there was no such agreement before, so there is nothing to discuss in terms of this issue. So it's important to understand that this is something new. And it's very important that this is about something new. And if we're talking about the fund, that question is also resolved in this framework agreement. I believe it's co-owners in English, that is, partners. It's important to note that these are our resources, and we are grateful to the United States. We are ready to talk about partnership. It's important that the fund is not solely American but is a Ukraine-American fund, meaning that we manage the fund together with our colleagues from the United States as co-owners, meaning we have rights. However, of course, let's talk about money. It's too early to discuss it because this is a framework agreement. For example, Ukraine is contributing to the fund with new resources, as I said, not from the past, but from new things. However, it's important to note that you can't reimburse anything into this fund today, and you won't be able to. And this understanding is what? Because there's no contract for the next stage yet. That's the more complicated and serious one because the next contract will be about the fund. And it will already establish some partnership relations, money, and so on. That next agreement will also require mandatory ratification by the Ukrainian parliament. I don't know about the US Congress, I just don't have that information, and our partners haven't told me anything. For us, it's mandatory according to our legislation. Here, 50% will be reimbursed from the profits of new licenses. That is, Ukraine must deal with licenses here. So, Ukraine needs to figure out the licensing system. It's not written in the agreement, but there needs to be an understanding, an audit of what's where. If there are dormant licenses, they need to work for the state in any case. So, this is fine. And 50% will go into the fund where we are already partners. The understanding is that this sounds very much like a partnership now. But again, I want to emphasize that the next steps, the next agreements, will determine the format of the partnership and how it can work. Now, as for the two things that were important to me, three main things were critical. First, no debt. This is a debt that does not exist. Second, if we're talking about investments, remember the 2-to-1 rule. That point was very important because we're handing over assets, and then the Americans will count future assistance toward that. And we need to discuss this separately with the President of the United States. What this assistance might look like and what it will entail. This doesn't relate to this agreement. This agreement is part of our broader arrangements with the United States. It could also be part of future security guarantees. But I want to understand this agreement, just this agreement, and also understand the broader vision of what lies ahead for Ukraine. I'm calm because I was told that the 2-to-1 point is not in this agreement. That's already a good sign because it was saying that for every dollar from the US, we'd need to pay back 2. I'm glad that I believe this point was irrelevant. And so, it's not there, and I view this positively. Another point I draw attention to is, of course, the economic terms of the agreement. But I've strongly requested at least some understanding that we equally see this as part of future security guarantees. That's why, even in this framework agreement, I really wanted to see at least a sentence about Ukraine's security guarantees. And I was briefed by government officials, and I remember it appeared in point 10. It's important that it's there. So today, I'm still reading it. The agreement, as proposed by government officials, is recommended for signing by the ministers. I understand this reflects the understanding of both sides, both countries. As for the signing format, I just can't tell you yet, I don't have that information. We'll think about it, hear from our partners, and discuss it. I don't see any issues here because this is the beginning, a framework agreement. What's important is that this agreement could be a great success. And I think a big success depends on my discussion with President Trump. If I see it, I'll be happy to hear it, and I'm counting on America and the President very much, and if I understand the broader picture that he sees, because we have our own picture of a just peace for Ukraine, and if I understand that all this is part of broader security guarantees for Ukraine and understanding that there were a couple of messages that this agreement gives steps forward for the Americans to protect their investments and so on.
безпеки для України ширших і розуміння, що так пару меседжів було, що ця угода дає кроки вперед для того, що американці будуть захищати свої інвестиції, тощо.
It's just one story, you get something back, a fund from some licenses, but it's not enough to develop. Let's be honest. That is, this is not the right money. Understand? That is, serious American investments in mining and technology are needed here. Understand? Because some licenses, as they say, are lying dormant. Someone is keeping it quiet somewhere. This means serious technology. This is an expensive story. If we all see the future in this way, and if we understand that the United States of America is one of the countries that provides security guarantees, or one of the main countries, then it can be a success. Or the first step towards a sustainable and just peace, towards a growing economy of Ukraine, etc. And if it's just, a beginning without a vision of what's next, then it probably is. We'll draw conclusions after my dialogue with President Trump. As for the visit, I think it's been proposed to us. But I want to get the official office confirmation. The offices are working. What is the format? When? There is a working date. What the US President said, Friday. Well, the officers are in touch.
Now, please, any further questions?
I have an important question. I really want this visit because it's an important issue for me. It's important for the President to open up America, to open the agreement as a step forward. And for me, it's very important to hear this, that the assistance, here and now, with our relations, that US support will not be stopped, not later, but right now. And I need this for our people. It's crucial. And for me, this is the main point for today.
The contingent is foreign.
Contingent. We are working on it. I'm glad that the group of 8 countries has joined, and they are now looking at this with more positivity, especially the Nordic and Baltic countries. We had a meeting in Kiev, and I think this is very important. It depends on the role that the United States will play in all of this. I believe it also depends on the number of countries, their composition, and who can help or provide guarantees. This is part of the security guarantees. We understand this, economy, weapons, contingents, and so on. And we are making steps in this direction. We still have different views on the numbers. And, with any agreement, there can be different perspectives. The most important thing is that we move toward positivity, toward peace, toward a lasting, just peace, toward results, no matter what. Though I emphasize, no matter what, we do not trust the Russians when they say they want peace. And so it is precisely on the basis that we believe in our army, and this will be one of the most important guarantees of security, that I will maintain in any case the number of troops, the maximum number of troops that Ukraine needs to protect its interests.
Thanks. New York Post. Caitlin.
Hello. What does this trip to Washington mean, considering you will be the first to visit President Trump, not Putin, with whom the president plans to meet? What does it mean for you and for Ukraine that you will meet Trump first? And do you hope that this meeting will be a reset of your relations with President Trump? Thank you very much.
First of all, I have a question, and we really need answers, honest answers. Because we are in a state of war, and we need to understand what we can count on, right? That's why this visit before Putin is such a good signal, first and foremost. Yes, I believe it, though I don't know how this will unfold because I'm still in Kiev. We'll see. But what's important is that it sends the right signal that we can ask each other very important questions, as I've mentioned, and get answers before meeting with Putin. And of course, before Putin meets with anyone, if they ever meet, that's up to President Trump to decide. But I would like to align our position with that of the United States. The war is happening in Ukraine, so for me, the Ukrainian position is a priority. Next, I want to explain to President Trump how I understand the position of our European partners because we've had many consultations, and I believe I know what they are ready for and how they can help, as well as the strategic role that the EU, and even broader Europe, will play for Ukraine. It is already playing that role, but it will continue to play it in future security guarantees. So, my question is very direct. Will the United States stop its support or not? Can we buy weapons? If there aren't 8 countries, can we purchase weapons directly from the US? And can we work with frozen assets for purchasing weapons, for example, and also for investments? Because we need to develop many things, such as minerals and the rebuilding of Ukraine. This is also part of Ukraine's reconstruction. How is the United States communicating with Russia? Of course, they have their own relationships, but when we discuss Ukraine, I must emphasize that it is unacceptable for decisions to be made about us without us. So, for me, this is one of the essential points. And we've also heard many messages about sanctions, imposing them, not lifting sanctions on Russia. In my view, this is very important, and a lot depends on President Trump's decision. Because European partners will also consider this. And this is the crucial moment. What can we achieve now with the United States, and what will happen tomorrow? And truly, what shared plans can we prepare to end this war?
Ukrainian media, please, questions.
RBC Ukraine, may I ask? As I understand, you mentioned that all agreements, you said, are no longer about debt.
There is no debt.
But just recently, President Trump spoke about these 500, 350, and so on. The question is, to what extent can you respond to this? How did you reach an agreement on this? Was there some backstage conversation, so to speak, and maybe we offered something, or perhaps we made some concessions? How did you manage to ensure that this issue of debt is no longer part of the agreement, even though he spoke about it recently?
Look, I believe that. I don't know, because there is rhetoric in the United States, and something reaches us, something doesn't, maybe we don't know everything, or maybe they have their own intentions, I'm not sure. Look, it's hard for me to evaluate just words or sentences. What's important for me? Yes, the agreements, although it's a framework, it's a first step. And it's clear that the fund, where the money goes, is not something we can talk about until there's a fund agreement. So, for now, no one is reimbursing anything. This is an important issue. And until the next agreement is ratified, it won't happen. But this is all about the future, and debt is about the past. And I'm being honest, if we received help, we had grant money. So, whatever sum may appear, even if $1 appears, I explained to my colleagues at all meetings with colleagues here, with the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, with Special Envoy Kellogg, with Vice President J.D. Vance, with Secretary Rubio.
As a special envoy Kellogg, with the Vice President of the United States, with the Secretary Rubio also.
Everything I told them.
Все, що я їм казав.
Look, if there's even $1 in this agreement, no matter what you're saying, or what you're saying publicly, I don't know why you're saying this. If there's even one, all the countries that have helped us should come to us and say, look, we also want to invest in the fund, and we want you to invest the money you took not only from the United States but also from us.
Повинні підійти до нас і сказати, дивіться, ми також хочемо вкладати в фонд, і ми хочемо, щоб ви вкладали ті гроші, які ви взяли не тільки в Сполучених Штатах, а брали у нас.
And we also want to claim part of this fund and so on. So, let's all come together. Well, I explained, this is a precedent, a Pandora's box. A Pandora's box. So, I won't accept that. And here are our poor government officials who haven't slept, trying in every way, and we had very big dialogues here. I will not accept a 10-cent debt repayment in this agreement. Otherwise, it's a precedent. The issue is not that we are ungrateful. We are grateful. And as I said, in the next agreement, which this one opens, where we can discuss security guarantees in more detail or talk about specific sums. And how this fund will be managed, we're ready to talk, if that's the condition, that further assistance to Ukraine will not be free. This is a new reality. It can happen. I mean, everyone understands the conditions we're in. We are at war. And I think we won't be able to choose or play with this. So, I won't play. If you tell me we're continuing the help, it will be in a financial format, like when you give us weapons worth $30 billion, we will have to return something. You say, what? We'll repay. We will. Because we will need this assistance.
And a small clarification regarding your previous answer, after the agreement is signed, what exactly are we expecting from the United States? Security guarantees, a peace plan from Trump. We've signed, then what?
Next, the teams must develop an agreement regarding this fund. For this first agreement to work, another agreement is needed. You know, like with lawyers. Why didn't I become a lawyer after university? Because this is your whole life, like this. No specifics. My father is a mathematician, and I always found it easier to talk to him. And it's the same with lawyers. When you finish this agreement, there definitely needs to be a second one, because this one won't work, and after the second, there will be a third that should work. God forbid, there are lawyers, thank God, let them work. They will work to make the fund exist. And the ratification in Parliament is clear, because there's real money involved. After the fund is established, what's outlined will happen, and there will be specific investments from that point on.
But does the agreement need to be ratified?
This one? No. Because this agreement is about general principles and the goodwill to create a fund that will be filled with 50% of the future. But as it stands, there is no real fund connected to the fund agreement yet. So, nothing can be filled. You understand? Without the next agreement, it won't work like that. Therefore, the next steps are needed for ratification. This is also important to me. Because between the first step and the second step, we must understand where we stand with the United States. That's what I really want. That's why I believe our meeting with President Trump, this one, or it will be part of various meetings with different representatives after this one, is important. I think this is important. We all need to understand that there will be no simple ceasefire without security guarantees for Ukraine. Look, it won't work like that. It will only work like this. The war ends in a way that we know it won't start again tomorrow. That's how it will be.
A couple of questions, if we may.
Yes, if needed. Let's do one from the Ukrainian press and one from the BBC. Let's go.
Mr. President, thank you. So, your message today. Let's not get too carried away, as I heard, and according to this agreement, if there are no security guarantees, you will not sign this agreement. So, let's not get too excited about this agreement if it doesn't include specifics on security guarantees, because
under this agreement, there must be very specific steps regarding security guarantees, because we need to discuss this not only with the US, but also with the US, Europe, and others. The US alone will not be enough, even if we talk about NATO, which is what we want. And I know that this is very difficult, and no one really believes in it. But I will return to this topic because I want to follow either the NATO path or something similar. I understand what this means for us. I know all the necessary points of what NATO is. And we are ready to be flexible and discuss this, what any country can recommend or guarantee. That's why this agreement will include very basic principles, yes, about security guarantees, and so on. But I think it's not only about that. The next steps should be focused on that. Without future security guarantees, we won't have a truly just peace. And we won't have a real ceasefire, as Trump said. And if that doesn't happen, nothing will work. Then we will have nothing. Nothing will work. And I know that. That's why I'm talking about it, we need this. I said that I am ready for the basic principles, that we are strategic partners, and so on. But I want to understand what will happen to us tomorrow, to our families. Just to understand this. And to understand where you stand. So, we don't just need an agreement about money. Because right now, we are surviving. So, my first question is, will the United States stop military aid or not? Right now, there are no actions regarding freezing, and I am very grateful to President Trump and Congress, bipartisan support, and the people. But you understand that tomorrow we will not end the war because of Putin.
Last question, please, ICTV.
Christina Havrish, Mr. President, security guarantees are indeed very important for Ukraine. Do you know if, perhaps, French President Emmanuel Macron discussed this issue with Donald Trump? What formats were discussed, and what role should the US and the EU play in this?
Look, today it's crucial, and we are counting a lot on President Trump and America. It's important not to lose America as one of the guarantors, or the main one, or one of the key guarantors of security for Ukraine. And we are all working on this. Emmanuel was here. I understand what Emmanuel was talking about, I mean in the context of Ukraine and the war for Ukraine. Therefore, we foresee, and we very much want, and we understand the configuration where the United States has a place. And it could be the main one, and we would like that, but if America doesn't want to be the main one, we understand where we can have other security guarantees from the United States. And we understand how that could open up opportunities for broader involvement from Europe. Because Europe is more at ease when America is alongside. And that's right, because we are all allies. We are allies. Now is not the time to divide. Because the enemy is one, regardless. And I believe the US team will soon understand all of this as well. I really believe in that. That's all. So, we will discuss the configuration after the United States. If I go, we'll see. I plan to go to London right after this, and we'll meet with the Europeans there with Keir Starmer.
Thank you, dear colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much.
The American side wanted to be sure and etc. But I will have a meeting with the government. My position is I'm very direct and very honest with the president. I want to discuss with him some points about military support, political support, and that's why it's very important. And that's why we have a lot of topics, and the first deal is one of the topics.
But did he say you had to sign it before you could come to Washington?
No, I didn't speak with him.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Sorry.